WrestleMania 18 was a pillar event in the WWE. Following what many people call the greatest WrestleMania in history, WrestleMania X7, the expectations were very high for WrestleMania 18. And to a lot of people, they didn't disappoint. The WWE moved forward with one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Other major matches featured on that WrestleMania card was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall, with Kevin Nash in his corner. Kurt Angle took on Kane, and Triple H challenged Chris Jericho for the WWE Undisputed Championship. Now, while we've seen WrestleMania X8 has been one of the more successful and more memorable WrestleManias in history, there is room for improvement. Here's how I would improve WrestleMania 18. So briefly, let's go over what we got at WrestleMania 18. Now, I'm not going to go over every match on the card because the undercard was actually really solid. I just want to take a look at some of the top matches and switch some things around and switch some guys around to make the card make a little bit more sense and maybe even improve it. Now, we know that hindsight is 20/20, and for a lot of these things, I'll be using that as the basis of how I'm doing everything, especially when it comes to the first match that we're going to talk about, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Now, Hulk Hogan and The Rock were on a collision course, and the build was a little strange. The Rock and Hogan went back and forth. The Rock challenged Hogan. Hulk Hogan accepted. And it looked like things were off to the races. And then the NWO put him in an ambulance and ran into it with a giant truck. That's right. In the build to WrestleMania 18, Hulk Hogan tried to kill The Rock. Murder? Seems a little excessive. As we all know, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had debuted with the NWO a little earlier on in the year, and that's how they started feuding with The Rock and Stone Cold. Now, Hogan and Austin only had a very brief encounter in the ring in WWE during this time. Austin was preoccupied with Scott Hall. Hogan was preoccupied with The Rock. In the build to WrestleMania, we saw Stone Cold tie Scott Hall to a chair and basically torture him. And then at WrestleMania, we got a pretty decent match between these two, and to be completely honest, one of the best stunners in WrestleMania history. And finally, Triple H took on Chris Jericho for the Undisputed Championship. Jericho had recently won the Undisputed Championship at Vengeance, and Chris Jericho then defended both of those titles against Triple H at WrestleMania. The build to WrestleMania was Stephanie and Jericho teaming together and putting their differences aside to get at Stephanie's ex-husband, Triple H. In the end, these guys put on a very entertaining match, but trying to follow Hogan and Rock at that event was just too much. They tore the house down and were the real main event. They put on the match of the night, and unfortunately, Jericho and Triple H had to go on last. While the match was good, it's not remembered as one of the greatest WrestleMania main events of all time. Now, while WrestleMania 18 was really solid, a couple of little tweaks and changes could have made the build and the pay-per-view a little bit better. Now again, hindsight is 20/20, and that's why I'm not changing Hogan versus Rock. Why would I change something that worked out to be so perfect? Yeah, I know. Everyone's probably talked about rebooking this entire event with Austin versus Hogan at the top, maybe even for the title. And to be completely honest, it was the fault of WWE for not giving us this match at any point, anytime in the future. They could have kept Hogan heel for just a little bit longer to have the dream match with Austin. But I digress. This isn't about rebooking the entire territory. What I would change are a lot of the other top matches. And this goes back to the Royal Rumble. Instead of Triple H coming back and winning the Royal Rumble, I would have Triple H and Kurt Angle take each other out in the Royal Rumble. Maybe in the Final Four, the two of them are battling, and they both close on each other out to the floor. Enraged by the fact that Triple H has now come back and returned and had his moment taken away from him by Kurt Angle, Triple H would attack Kurt Angle on the outside. Kurt Angle, fueled with anger for not getting his opportunity at main eventing WrestleMania, goes right back at him and Triple H and Angle brawl. The next month, a match would be set up between Kurt Angle and Triple H. And what I would do is do the entire build with the idea that neither man would be allowed to touch the other before the event starts, unless it's in a sanctioned match. So maybe a couple of tag matches, maybe a couple of promo segments, but that's pretty much it. Now this is where it gets interesting. At the pay-per-view, which I believe would be No Way Out, Kurt Angle goes one-on-one with Triple H. But the entire time, Kurt Angle keeps talking about how he has a secret weapon, the only thing that he knows that would guarantee him victory over Triple H. And Kurt Angle debuts Stephanie McMahon. And Stephanie gets on the mic. Before the match, she tells Triple H, "Hunter, back in the day, when it looked like Kurt and I were hooking up, we weren't. But I wanted to. And I wanted him way more than I wanted you. Now Triple H is enraged, he attacks Kurt Angle, the match never happens. They brawl all over the building, and it leads to the only logical explanation and logical choice at WrestleMania, a cage match. Now I know what you guys are probably thinking. Albert, if you take Triple H as the main event of WrestleMania, who faces Chris Jericho and wins the Royal Rumble? The answer? It was here the whole time. That's right, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Austin wins another Royal Rumble? Yeah, I know. And I'm not the biggest fan of one guy repeatedly winning an event over and over again. But it's the most logical choice, as there were really no other big top guys for Jericho to go against that aren't already taken. Now, an argument could be made for guys like Edge or Booker T, but I think that Austin was still the most popular guy in the company, even with Triple H coming back. And Austin versus Jericho could have been awesome. Imagine the promo battles between the two of them. We've seen them feud before. We know what it turned out to be. They've always had great chemistry in the ring. And Austin would have gotten the fans on their feet for that main event more than I think Triple H as a babyface would have. Jericho could be the ultimate heel, taunting Austin, talking about how he toiled in obscurity in WCW only to come to WWE and be on this meteoric rise, and now he's jealous because somebody else came from another place and did it even better than Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Austin doesn't have to do much to change. He's just Stone Cold Steve Austin. He reacts to Chris Jericho the way he needs to and handles his business and does it at WrestleMania. Now, obviously that leaves one big major piece. What about the rest of the NWO? Well, this took a little bit more thinking. And the more I looked at the roster at the time, I realized how much more beneficial it would be if when the NWO would have debuted, instead of targeting Austin and The Rock, maybe they started a little bit lower. Now, The Rock can come out and challenge Hogan. That makes total sense. But maybe the NWO decide to go out and try to start taking the WWE out piece by piece. And maybe they take out some tag teams, and maybe they take out some more undercard guys, and finally, two guys band together just to stop the NWO because they see how bad things are getting. My first choice is Kane. Kane can have a match against Scott Hall. Hogan and Nash can get involved. They beat him down. And now they lay Kane out. The next week, maybe Rikishi has a one-on-one match against Hogan. After a few minutes, the same thing happens. And then, the week after, they decide, if we don't take care of this now, it's going to always be a problem. And Rikishi and Kane band together to take on the Outsiders at WrestleMania. Now, those are the matches I would book. But the question is, well, Albert, what would you do? Luckily, I thought about that too. To start off, I would have Triple H defeat Kurt Angle in the cage match. Back and forth, Stephanie interferes. Maybe she even takes a small bump, like where she's kind of like a rung or two on the cage, and Triple H or Angle gets running into the cage and she falls down, and I don't know, maybe it looks like she sprains her ankle, and Kurt Angle gets a little bit concerned, and Triple H beats on him, and he winds up beating Kurt Angle so bad that he pedigrees him and leaves him laying in the middle of the ring and just walks out the door. This keeps Triple H hot, because we know that he's going to be in the main world title picture right after this. And also, let's face it, if Hogan and The Rock ends the way that it does, that means that they're going to need another big challenger for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Why not even have a babyface versus babyface match? Or just turn Triple H right back into a heel? Now, we know Hogan winds up slipping into that slot, but maybe Hogan has a little bit of a different thing to do after this. Why? Well, this bleeds into everything else. Kane and Rikishi would lose their match to the Outsiders due to outside interference from a debuting X-Pac. X-Pac could come in, hit a big kick on Rikishi. He's already got heat with Kane from years and years ago, so Kane goes to chase him out. The Outsiders hit a double team on Rikishi. Kane comes back, but by the time he comes back, it's too late to rescue his partner. Now we know that Hall and Nash come out after the Hogan-Rock match, right? Well, now it wouldn't just be Nash and Hall, it would be 6 too. And when they fight everybody off, Kane and Rikishi can come back out to get their revenge. Now, The Rock goes off and does his own thing. Hogan stays back with Kane and Rikishi to take on the NWO. Then, Hogan can get his big singles push to the next pay-per-view after Austin and Triple H have their match. Now, I know what you're thinking. Albert, you said Austin versus Triple H before. Does that mean you're booking Austin to beat Jericho? And the answer is no! This would solidify Chris Jericho as the main event that WWE needed him to be at the time. They were starting to run thin at the top, and they needed new blood, and Jericho was the perfect guy to do it. How do you get Chris Jericho over? He beats Stone Cold Steve Austin by hook or by crook in the main event of WrestleMania. Austin goes berserk, and maybe he goes off to have a feud with someone else. Maybe he feuds with The Rock. But what I would do is I would have Jericho then face Triple H at the next pay-per-view. Now Jericho and Triple H have their match. Maybe that's where Triple H goes over. And maybe he drops the title just like he did right back to Hulk Hogan at the next pay-per-view. Maybe the holdover for Austin is The Undertaker. who maybe beats Austin and becomes the #1 contender for Hogan's world title. These are just a few ideas that could happen. But for the most part, that's how I would rebook WrestleMania 18 and a couple of months behind it. What do you guys think? Would you do anything different? Tell me in the comments. And I usually don't do this, but I would really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe to this channel and maybe share these videos around so other people can see them and they can get involved. After all, the more of us here, the better it is. This has been Albert Albanese, and this has been The Slam Session.